So let's do one of these stories that will probably get everybody upset or disagreeing in some way, shape, or form. Over the weekend, some of the Democratic candidates did interviews with Telemundo, the Spanish language channel. And the interviewer, whose name is Guadalupe Venegas, of course, talked about many issues, including Mexico. And when the topic of Mexico came up, he would start to ask the candidates what they knew about the Mexican president, Obrador. And both Amy Klobuchar and Tom Steyer didn't seem to know that much, and eventually got to the question of, do you know the president's name in Mexico? And neither was able to say the Mexican president's name, appearing not to know them in Klobuchar's case, and maybe to have forgotten it in Tom Steyer's case. So let's check out the clips. First one here is Amy Klobuchar. You can see Amy Klobuchar's widely known disdain for her staff noticeable when it becomes clear that she is going to be, or has been, when she's asked the president's name, she looks off camera to someone, presumably a staffer, with that well-known, how did you allow this to happen sort of look. Here's Amy Klobuchar.
Yes.
What do you know about the Mexican president?
Okay, well, what I will tell you is that I will visit Mexico in the first 100 years. 100 days.
100 days.
I will visit there.
Are running for president.
Yes.
You would like to be the Democratic candidate.
Yes.
What do you know about the Mexican president now?
Well, I know that he is elected in the last few years. I don't know him personally. I've met with the ambassador, and I was actually supportive of the trade agreement. So I worked with the embassy on that. They came to meet with me.
And I ask because it's so important, especially Nevada, California, Arizona, Texas. This is our neighbor to the south. Do you know anything about him? Specifically his politics, what he's doing, since this would be the country you would share a border with. Anything you can tell me about him?
I know that they are neighbors, and regardless of who the leader is, that it is someone that I will work with.
Do you? I'm sorry to ask this, but do you know who he is? Do you know his name?
Yeah. I know that he is the Mexican president.
But can you tell me his name?
No. So.
Don't you think it would be important, if you're running for president, to know who the president of Mexico, the country to the south of the United States, is?
Yes.
Because it affects so many Americans.
Okay, that was Amy Klobuchar, and then here's Tom Steyer, also asked the same question.
Do you know about his policies?
I think he's a very progressive man.
I'm asking because I feel like a lot of the times, this is our neighbor to the south, and a lot of people don't even know his name. So you know.
I forget.
Do you know his name?
I forget, but I'm just saying, I followed this policy.
I'm sorry, we are Telemundo, and our viewers are Hispanic speakers, and you're running you want the candidacy to represent the Democrats, but you can't tell me the president of Mexico. You don't know who the president of Mexico is.
I followed this election. I've watched what's happening.
Don't you think it's important to know who the neighbor to the south is?
I do, but let me say this. I followed this election from the standpoint of, he was the mayor of Mexico City. He's a progressive man. I followed this policy from the standpoint of, what does this mean for him getting along with us? What does it mean for him getting along with a right-wing nationalist president of the United States of America? And how are we going to relate to that? And so to me, I followed that very closely, because there's a real question in Mexico. Where are they going with their policies? This was a true change. This was a distinct change. It's not. So have I met him? No. Do I go to Mexico every single year? Yes. Do I understand that Mexico is at a crossroads in terms of how it is governed? And this was a distinct choice that scared the pants off business people in Mexico and the United States.
Right,
yes, I do.
So there are basically three stories here to talk about. The first is the top level. Wow, they don't know the Mexican president's name. Now, it's true that not knowing the Mexican president's name is very different than not knowing the name of the president of Slovakia, for example, who I looked up the name. It's Zuzana Kaputova. Because our relationship with Mexico is very different than our relationship to Slovakia. Our proximity, the number of people who come to the United States from Mexico is much greater than Slovakia. So it's not the same. But at any point, you can do a sort of, do you know the name of X leader question? And maybe the person does, or maybe the person doesn't. But with most politicians, you would find someone whose name they don't know. And you can make them not look very good in the moment. I am actually more concerned with what the candidates know about the Mexican president and his policy and U.S.-Mexico relations than whether they know the name, although not knowing the name is a concern. So neither Klobuchar nor Tom Steyer remembered Obrador's name. Steyer later said, well, I know him, but I just forgot the name. All Klobuchar was able to say was he was recently elected. She genuinely seemed to have no idea about anything else, and she's a sitting U.S. senator. Tom Steyer's a businessman. He says he did know the name, but he forgot it. But he was at least able to list some of the background and the prior positions of the current Mexican president. So even though they both forgot his name, my reaction is less negative to Steyer based on the totality of what was said than Klobuchar, even though the headline simplified it as Amy and Steyer neither can name the Mexican president. I care far less about remembering his name than about how they understand relations with Mexico, what they would do about immigration, the war on drugs, economic policy to support Mexico, trade, where Amy Klobuchar voted in favor of Trump's trade deal. Tom Steyer, I think from what I've seen him say, would not have were he in a position to do so. All of that, and forgetting or not knowing the name, it's something, but not all that much. When Gary Johnson was asked about Aleppo, and he said, what is Aleppo? Not even recognizing that it is a city, that's very different. Right? Not realizing that Aleppo is a city that's central to what's happening in Syria. That's not this. Now, lastly, you have to understand that these clips are being used by some cynical Mayor Pete supporters. Pete was asked and did know the Mexican president's name. And there's all these side-by-sides now going around where Pete names the president and Amy and Steyer can't. I mean, okay, maybe that's how some people decide who to vote for. I hope we're making a deeper analysis than who you can name. So is this cartoony and funny and quirky in some way? Yes, it is. But there's actually a much deeper issue here to talk about, and that's about policy when it comes to Mexico. This episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. One of the things I make a priority on the show is not to perpetuate stigma for things that don't deserve it. We've talked about mental health. We've talked about many things where we should all just be respectful adults, period, and we would be better off. And Blue Chew can increase performance and give you that extra confidence you may be looking for. BlueChew.com, blue like the color blue, is the first chewable with the same FDA-approved ingredient as in Viagra and Cialis. It can be taken day or night, even on a full stomach, since it's chewable. It works twice as fast as a pill. Whenever the opportunity arises, Blue Chew is prescribed online by licensed doctors. You don't have to go to a doctor's office. You don't have to wait in line at a pharmacy. It ships right to your door in a discreet package. They're made in the USA, and since Blue Chew prepares and ships direct, it's cheaper than a pharmacy. And best of all, no more awkwardness. We've got a special deal for our viewers and listeners. Go to BlueChew.com. Get your first shipment free when you use our promo code Pakman. That's Pakman. Pay just $5 shipping. That's BLUE Chew.com, promo code Pakman to try it totally free. Blue Chew is the better, cheaper, faster choice, and we thank them for sponsoring the David Pakman Show.